Ram Ram! Welcome to another video of the Flowing Dutchman. In this video I am again going to do a vlog on the motorcycle. I just came from Dharwad and I'm going to Bangalore. So that's quite a long journey. I started this morning 8 o'clock and hopped on the bike for, well, almost 500 kilometers. So luckily it's a lot of highway, so it should be quite quick, but you know, you never really know in India because, well, you always I had friends that said that no matter how fast your bike is, you'll always average on a 50 kilometer per hour speed. I do not fully agree with it, and it's probably not true, especially if you have really quick bikes, because the highways are getting better. But for some areas in India, you just don't. There's so many speed bumps, there's so many holes in the ground that you're just forced to not go so quick. Anyways, a long journey ahead, so a lot of highway. I wanted to talk a little bit today about the experience that I had in Dharwad. I came from Kolhapur, which is in Maharashtra, and I had a wonderful experience there. But I knew I was going to go to Bangalore, but I had to find something in the middle. So a good friend of mine, Tom Billing, he owns Water Yoga. He mentioned to me he has done a trip to the south recently. I think it's about 3 months back now, 2 months. And in his experience, Bangalore was a good option. And there was also something which I read later about Hubli and Dharwad. But in my mind, I had this idea that it was only Hubli. So the idea was to go from Kolhapur to Hubli and find something like an akhara there, stay there for one night, and then the next day move to Bangalore, which would have been yesterday. Now, I couldn't really find a good hotel in Hubli, so I decided, well, I'll just go for the best hotel that I can find, best value for money, and that was in Dharwad. Only later did I read that Tom actually mentioned Dharwad and Hubli, so I had a notion that there could be some akharas around that area, but I had no idea what to do when I would enter Dharwad. So I came there around 4 p.m., 3 to 4 p.m. After the drive was not so long, it was about 3 to 4 hours. I had done something in the morning, visited an akhara in Kolhapur, and then I went to Dharwad. But immediately I noticed that I was quite tired. Because of that, I didn't really feel the urge to go all the way to Hubli for half an hour and try to find an akhara, it's always difficult to find one when you don't really know where to go, and especially if you're dependent upon asking other people here for the location, because they always want to answer you, but most of them just don't know precisely because they're difficult to find and they have an idea about it, but not really very clear goal or clear idea of where it exactly is. So I've had this before where I'm like searching for 1.5 to 2 hours, and then it's just I don't find anything, and then I'm like kind of sad, and at this point it was like, yeah, I should probably not do that and just find a gym, have a little workout after the long day of driving, and then the next day I'll be prepared to drive a full day. Now, I looked for gyms, and I usually look on Google and see how well they're rated, what the pictures are, and I found an interesting one, and it's Adarsh Barbell Club. Now that always makes me interested, because in India you'll find a lot of bodybuilding types of gyms. So a lot of, you know, machines, dumbbells, maybe. A lot are very old gyms. So like the old machines, and it's all based around bodybuilding, and not much about free weights, even though they have dumbbells, but they're not using it as much as free weight. So barbells sounded interesting to me, so I decided, okay, let's go there and we'll see. So I entered, I had to put off my shoes, and Adarsh, the owner, was there, and he said, okay, I'm train for one day, and what is your profession, and what are you doing here? And then I talked about him, about some of the experience that I had in the documenting akharas and talims. And then he said, wait a second, do you have a YouTube channel? And of course, before I knew it, they found my channel again, and they had seen some videos, and there was one of the trainers there in the gym, Adarsh, the owner, he straight away said to him, oh, you should ask him, because there are quite a lot of akharas here close by. And that was Maruti, also known as Mairoti. So Maruti, he used to be a Pehlwan, he used to be in an akhara, but sadly, due to a very tragic accident after a win of that, all the wrestlers went to a tournament of his club, and after a win they had a major accident, and 28 of the Pehlwans died that night. And after that he was like, this doesn't feel good anymore, all my friends are gone. And well, just imagining what a sad event that would have been. Wow, crazy. Difficult to imagine, very difficult to imagine. But I can see that negative energy turned him away from wrestling, especially at that akhara. So fast forward, eventually I noticed that he was straight away was calling people and said, oh, are you here, are you there, we're gonna do this. And then he suddenly had a cameraman, and the man of connections, a popular man, an influential man in Dharwad. So straight away I noticed that I came to the right place. I wanted to have an anonymous workout where nobody would notice me, and what directly fell into a very warm welcome with people that directly started to manage and find things that I could document close to there. So that help is amazing, and I'm always flabbergasted when people, you know, do so much to create a good experience for me. Like for me, it's maybe documenting these old training styles. For someone else, it's finding a nice place or a nice temple. And you know, people in India are they always say guests are God, and that is really true, especially if you're not in touristic areas, because in touristic areas they're used to tourists. So once they're used to tourists, the whole concept of guest is God is kind of thrown out the window, and it's like guest is money. And so when I'm traveling through India, I like to only meet people who say guest is God and not guest is money, because that I just don't like that attitude. And India is so warm and welcome and open to share their culture for people outside of their culture. So that's just amazing. So the idea was to meet up in the morning, very early, around 6:30, to go to an akhara and see them wrestling. So that all got through. Adarsh was there at 6:15, and we got there, and yeah, suddenly they got called and they said, we have bad news. Because of the tournament, the wrestlers were tired and decided not to practice, so they're not going to practice. We were like, oh man. I was tired, and I had plans to go to Bangalore and reach, or at least try to reach Bangalore, and I was like, oh, I woke up so early and I have to drive it all day. It was kind of sad. And then there was especially a cameraman came. It was like everything was so well planned and organized that then, well, you know, that's, you always get confronted, especially when you're traveling, or when I'm traveling, with the fact that you can have so many plans, but things will always turn out differently. Just look at the example of Dharwad. I didn't really have a plan for Dharwad, and then suddenly the plan evolves, and there's this grandiose idea of, whoa, we can film this, film that, see this akhara, that akhara, and then suddenly that changes, and it doesn't work anymore, and suddenly you're so emotionally, it's quite it can be quite a hurdle. Now, but they said maybe they will be able to train in the afternoon. So then the idea came about that we would go there around 3, and that I would go after meeting them for like 3 to 4 hour drive, and then rest somewhere in a hotel, and then the next day make the last 4 hours to Bangalore. So I figured that would be a good idea. I took some rest, and then the whole day we had a lot of fun with all the people the friends from Maruti, which were great people, and it's just a lot of fun to have these interactions with people that have the same age, the same kind of humor. It just makes the experience so much more vivid and warm, not just only documenting and trying to let people share what they know and what they do, but also actually having interactions and creating memories with people is one of the true treasures of my India trips. I'm so blessed to have so many friends in India that I can visit and that feel like family when I enter. So I feel very grateful for that. Very grateful. So then the afternoon came, and we went to the akhara, and eventually they all showed up. Slowly they all came in, and then I surprised them a little bit because I had the langot that I got in Kolhapur. I had that on, and that kind of broke the ice, and we wrestled, which was amazing. Took some great photos, and then in the evening I didn't really I was like, we were back at 6, and then the hotel said, okay, your checkout is now too late, you have to pay for another night. And I was like, I have to pay for another night, and then I have to drive 3 hours in the middle of the night in dark, which I don't really like here in India, because everybody has their big lights on when it's dark, and it's very difficult to see, so you cannot go so fast, and it just has a lot of negative memories to it. And it's just not very comfortable driving at night in India. That's the whole issue. So then I decided, okay, I'm gonna stay, gonna sleep very early, and then the next day I'll have energy to drive the full day to Bangalore. And that's what I'm doing right now. So I wanted to share the adventures of Dharwad, which were pretty cool. No, they were really cool, and also very unplanned. So some people ask me, is your journey planned? How do you find these places? And you know, the more people I know and the more that people know me, the easier it becomes to find the right people. And this was very different the first years I traveled, and now I notice that there's more opportunities and that people know about me more often. They want to have me at their gym. But before, in my first 3 to 4 years, it was always like this experience in Dharwad, where I just enter and I just start to ask around, do you know any akharas? Do you know any? And then sometimes some people will say, yeah, I will help you find them. And then before you know it, you have a wonderful experience with people that you haven't spoken before or met before you came into that town, and that they also have a nice experience because they can actually experience some of this these traditional training methods that they know about but never really put any effort into. And that is also what I noticed when I was in Dharwad, that all these people that came with me and that talked about it, they know about the wrestlers, they have experiences. Like Adarsh, for example, told me that his school was very close to the Akhara, and they always, when they were young, they always were a little bit scared of the Pelawans that were training there. And I noticed that all the people that live in these villages and cities around these areas, they all have a deep experience with the Pelawans and the Akharas, but things are starting to change. There was also something Maruti said, that the Akharas are closing one by one and quite quickly. And it's quite sad, the way they you know, the gyms aren't so, the whole I talked about this before, the whole fitness industry is so new. Like these gyms, these akharas, talims, they have been functioning for 150 years, sometimes 100 to 150 to even 200 years. So just imagine that the way they were structured is that they went to competitions, and all the money that was earned from the competitions got reinvested into the akharas. And that was the way they lived. You know, they are Pelawans. They live there, they train there, and they see their families rarely, only in holidays. So that is the business model, which is not a you can't even call it a business model compared to how gyms operate in these modern times. So things are shifting so fast with the whole internet, social media, cell phones, everything. And these akharas, the old way of it's I hate to say it, but it's almost inevitable that eventually these small akharas will perish. I just can't seem to find a way how to not see that. Like, even if you would find a way to fund them, the interest would eventually be lost, because people want to know, people want to have more. They want to have an individual life. They want to be the person they are called to be. They want to be they don't want to be a Pelawan and be fully committed to something and not have not investing time into seeing what other potentialities there are than just the Pelawan life. And I can see that that's why these types of practices are almost non-existent in Europe or the Netherlands. So I do fear that it is a dying art, and I'm not sure if it could be revivified. It can be, you know, the traditional art is being revivified as we speak, because more and more companies are now starting to sell these gloves again, and the interest in gadas is starting to change, and people are always interested when I show them, you know, videos of the Garnal and the Naal. So I think these things will definitely have their place. I'm just wondering in what way. In what way. So it's a blessing for me to find that they are still here, and to see and get a touch upon these ancient forms of training and social communities around physical culture. I really feel truly grateful that I can witness it and also share it with the world, because it's so valuable to me that this is, you know, how people have been living for thousands of years. So it's really cool. So that was what I wanted to say about my experience in Dharwad, and hope you enjoyed that talk. If you made it so far, see you in the next vlog.
Dutchman.